Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new video where we will be interviewing Ahowl11 and Moscaflaca, a couple of two modders from the RIS team. So, welcome, Ahowl and Moscaflaca, to the show.
How's it going, man? Good to see you again.
I'm glad to be a part.
All right. So, I guess first things first, what have you guys been up to? What are the latest developments in RIS?
We have been working very hard since, let's see, December, on a lot of different things, mainly new factions, new cultures, new religions, um, some banners, and then we've introduced a new wrinkle to the recruitment system, and we worked a lot on balance just to get the model a little bit more balanced. So not a lot of like huge updates like we did before, but we've kind of really took a interest and focus on the Greek world as far as the factions are concerned, and we're really excited to unveil um, all those factions to everybody.
Yeah, for sure, because everyone was excited about the last patch for Rome Remastered for sure, since they unlocked so many things like the faction limit and religion limits. So how are you using the religion system?
But we are using it as basically another way to simulate all the different cultures of the time and the world. So, for example, it's instead of tribal, Greco-Roman, and Eastern, we've divided it pretty substantially into. So Greco-Roman is now like Greek and Italic, whereas tribal is way more diverse. You
Mhm.
got Celtic, Germanic, Iberian, Illyrian, um, Scythian, Thracian, even Baltic.
Mhm.
And then Eastern, which comprised of like everything else, has also been really heavily divided. You have Libyan, Phoenician,
Mhm.
Egyptian, Arab, uh, Assyrian, or Aramean, depending on how you want to call it.
Mhm.
You have Anatolian, you have Armenian, Caucasian, Mesopotamian, and Iranian, and then lastly Indian. So basically, the East probably is going to be the most diverse because there were a lot of diverse cultures, even though they were primarily under the influence of the Seleucids and the Ptolemies. There was a ton of cultures, and we just wanted to uh, represent that as best we could.
Nice. Yeah, using the religion system in that way makes a lot of sense. So it'll kind of act as like a secondary culture system.
Yeah, exactly. So so it gets confusing with the Rome Total War engine. There's culture and there's religion. Culture is basically how rebels are defined on the map, how voices are given. So, like, if you want to sound barbarian, if you want to sound Roman, cultures also determine a lot of recruitment and building and just AI stuff. So, it's a lot of internal coding when it comes to cultures, but there's some external factors to it as well. So, basically, rebel banners and symbols, as well as there's a small culture penalty.
Hmm.
Um, if you're Armenia and you take Pontus, there's a small culture penalty because Pontus is an Anatolian culture,
Hmm.
where Armenia is Armenian culture.
Or religion, culture.
No, culture.
Oh,
So
culture. Okay.
top of that, though, you have the Armenian religion and the Anatolian religion. So there's even a more um,
Okay.
culture to that. So we call religion culture just because that's kind of what it is, but we found that it's actually easier to just call it religions, even though they're not
Right.
true religions. So yeah, you'll have a Caucasian religion in Colchis and Iberia and Albania, but you'll have an Armenian religion in Ararat and Vaspurakan and Sophene um, and
Right.
whatnot to differentiate the Caucasian peoples from Armenia. And this is actually something I just learned. I thought they were all very similar and akin to each other, and it turns out they are very different from each other, and they did not like each other very much. So, you will now be able to, if you're Armenia and you want to go to conquer the Iberians or the Colt Kingdom of Colchis, I guess, Colchians. When you conquer them, they're not gonna be too happy about that.
There's
So
going to be cultural difference. Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's kind of the main thing. So I think players are gonna see a lot of. It's gonna be a slower game now. Moscow, you've tested it a little bit. Um, what are your thoughts, and what have you seen from what we've been putting in?
Basically, I would say one of the most important changes that we've kind of made now is that when you conquer a city, um, and it's a different culture or religion than yours, you have to really make an effort to convert it to your culture. But at the same time, when you do that, it's risky because by when you start building these buildings that convert your culture, that actually starts inflicting a public order penalty to the city. Basically, they get mad that their culture is being forced to change. Um, so you have to be really careful about when you actually start converting your city because if you do it too early, and you don't have enough public order, and you start trying to convert them, they're just going to revolt, and you'll have to start over again. Um, so that's something that we like because it makes it so you can't just paint the map your color and take over the whole world really fast. And we're trying to make the game more realistic and more challenging so that it's more fun and people will enjoy it more.
And more rewarding.
More
When you,
rewarding.
yeah.
That too.
Right. So, one thing I've noticed is I'm like 2 months behind on this, but I've been watching since the Total War's Rome campaign, and he was really struggling to take a hold on Bononia and Cisalpine Gaul, and he was kind of like, "What the heck? Like these guys hate me." And I like that because historically, when the Romans tried to take over Cisalpine Gaul, they revolted over and over and over again, and it took them a while to influence their culture. Like say you're Carthage, right? And you want to take Iberia for the economy and the gold, the silver that it holds, but you don't necessarily need to recruit. And just don't build your annexation and let the Iberians be Iberians. Yeah, you're going to have to do some logistics with your armies if you want to go further north, but you can reap the economic benefits and not piss them off by putting your annexation. But like eventually you will have to convert as you strengthen your empire and you consolidate. You like Mosca said though, you just got to be smart about it. Now this is going to be developed more in time. This is like I don't know phase phase two of this whole system. Phase one being the system that we put out last release. This is phase two, and that doesn't mean it's a complete product or a complete system. So yeah, it's gonna be something that we continue to develop as we go forward.
Nice. So you mentioned a lot of new factions, right? That you're taking advantage of this new lifted limit for factions. So what part of the map have you focused on when adding new factions?
So we decided as a team that the first area to tackle, that was probably the most important area and the most fun area to tackle, would be the Greek and Hellenistic world. And so we tackled basically any independent Greek or Hellenistic faction that wasn't already in, we put it in. Only the extremely minor states and city states did not get in. And I'm talking about like so minor that you can barely find anything on them. And according to our historians, there's a few we've added that are debatable if they are worthy of a faction slot, but due to fan service and the fact that they really wanted some of these factions, we've added them. So I will be the first to say that I was on record months ago saying I would never add a Massalian faction. Massalia has no right to be a faction because there's nothing on them. They weren't anything. They just kind of sat there, right? Well, rest assured, Massalia is now a faction, and
All right.
anybody that wants to play as them can now do so. But I will say, we made it probably the hardest, if not like the second hardest campaign. So have fun with that.
Nice. Those campaigns are always welcome, I think. Even though, you know, a lot of the time people clamor for a faction, and then when you actually add them, you never get any feedback and no one ever plays them.
Get played. I do think there's a couple factions that we added that will be ignored. It's whatever, but the option to play them is there, or the option to fight against them is there. Quickly, I'll just run through for those that haven't been following our dev diaries. Our new factions from west to east are going to be Massalia, which is in southern France. You have Syracuse, which is in Sicily. You have Epirus on western Greece. So all you Paris fans, you know, you can avenge his death and try to conquer Rome again. Then to the south of them, you have the Aetolian League, which were actually quite powerful in this time. To the east of them, you have the very little known about Boeotian League, who I would say is probably one of the hardest factions to play as well. The south of them was Athens, and they are very, very, very hard and very, very far from their former glory. So don't think that that's going to be some easy cakewalk.
Right.
And west is the Achaean League, who have just become a faction, but have great potential and have cool units to choose from. And then going south to Africa, you have the Kingdom of Kyrene, which not much is known about, but they recently have just split off from the Ptolemaic Empire and are in a pretty tough position. North of that, you have the island, city-state, and naval power of Rhodes. This is a really interesting faction to play as. You're basically surrounded by the Ptolemies and the Seleucids, so you gotta take to the seas and use your strength to find conquest. And then finally, all the way out to the east, the far east, we have the asked for. I mean, it gets asked for. I think it was being asked for before the mod even released
Right.
back in May, and that's the Kingdom of Bactria. Uh, we did add one non-Greek faction to kind of help the Bactrians a little bit as far as immersiveness and fun. We did add the nomadic Staka. So they are a playable faction. They are a hoarding faction. So if you want to ravage the east and maybe conquer India as the Saka, that is an opportunity. So
Right. But there are still no reforms in the mod yet, right?
no, we actually do have reforms.
You do? Okay.
So these aren't perfect. They aren't super refined. They're basic. But for example, in Sparta, you're not going to get the pikemen right away.
Hmm.
Let's see. I believe Carthage has a few. The Ptolemies and the Seleucids have a few. The Achaeans have one. The Aetolians. They think the Antigonids have one. I
Can't
think,
forget the Germans.
yeah, the Suebi have one. And so there's a few others, but they're very basic. Feedback will be very welcome for that. So yeah, that's something that we did do.
Right. That's something that I think is probably one of my favorite things, to reform factions over time. So that's good.
And that's
That's good.
again that's like phase one of reforms, right?
Yeah.
So in future releases we'll work more on that too. Mosca, do you have anything to say about any of those new Greek factions as far as how they play?
Well, actually, yes. For one, we took a deeper look at the EDU, which is basically the file that determines all the unit stats in the game. And after we added in all these new Greek Greek factions, we realized some of their units didn't really make a whole lot of sense the way they were performing in battles. So we've gone into the EDU and we've tried to make the battles a little bit less grindy and tedious than they were in the previous version of the game. So battles will go by a little bit faster, but if you just have two units, for example, like two units of hoplites face to face against each other, they'll be fighting for a long time. But we've basically made it so flanking and like tactical maneuvers are more impactful on morale. And that was because a lot of these Greek units that we added were relying a lot on hoplites or on missile units, and basically we just had, like, for example, the Syracuse hoplites would just be able to kill a whole lot of people without much struggle, and we were like, or the Massalian hoplites, and we're like, we don't want these city state hoplites, which are basically just supposed to be the city hoplite class,
Of course.
like just fighting to the death and being like elite troops. They're just supposed to be like basic hoplites. So that's something that I worked a bit on, and I'm pretty happy with. Hopefully other people like the changes we've made, but that's something that I put a lot of effort into for this release.
Nice. So you could say that like morale shocks are going to play a bigger role in battles.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good. I think that's definitely a positive. I think the earlier releases were definitely more like Rome. They had more like SPQR mod or Roma Surrectum mod type battles. Yeah.
Good into the stack.
Yeah.
Yeah, the battles will probably feel a little bit more like vanilla than in the previous version, but I don't think that's a completely bad thing.
Oh, and here's the reason. Like, vanilla has a drawback because you can barely touch a unit and it starts routing and it's chain route, and you're like, okay, what the heck? Like, we
Right.
barely start fighting here. But some mods, like old Rome Total Realism, Roma Surrectum, some mods took it like to the next, like an extreme level where it's like you're basically on triple speed, and I just don't see the point of fighting the battles that everybody's going to be on triple speed. So hopefully some of these fixtures can kind of tone it down a little bit to where we don't see. We're just trying to find a happy medium, and we're kind of like feeling our way through the dark. So the more releases that we come out with, the better the battle's going to get. So I just want everybody out there listening just to know, like, hey, if it's not perfect, or if X unit or Y unit isn't as buffed or nerfed as it should be, don't worry. Like, it's gonna get fixed in patches and in future releases. Um, there's just so much to do. We can only concentrate on so much at a time. But there is one thing also, Judea, that I think we forgot to add, and it's in regards to we were talking about like when you conquer a settlement. Uh, we have a new recruitment system now as well. Well, I wouldn't say new, but an added wrinkle.
Right.
So basically, we have re-added the barracks, stables, and range buildings to the game.
Mm-hmm.
And what you need to do is you need to not only build your annexation up from the ground up, but you also need to build your barracks, stables, and ranges up like you did in vanilla. And the combination of building both, like they're all tied together, kind of slows the game down, and it really helps you focus on city management and city development as far as what you want to do. And so far, so good. It's taken from my vanilla enhancement mod. I have been crusading for it basically since the mod started, and it just hasn't been time until recently. Mosca, I have to get credit to him. He was willing to try it out first. Um, what are your thoughts, and what can a player expect from the new wrinkle to the recruitment system?
Well, basically, like Ahowl said earlier, we've re-added the need for barracks, stables, and archers, as well as having your what we call in the game right now is the annexation building, which basically represents your political grasp over the region. So in order to get units, you have to have at the very least the very first annexation building. But if you have that annexation building, you can only get um, not very good units. And then when you build up your archery range, so when you first have your very first annexation building, you can really only get one unit for the most part. But once you start advancing and building up the annexation building even further, as well as the archery range and cavalry stables and all that, you'll get more units. But you need to upgrade not just the stables to get better cavalry. For example, you also have to upgrade your
Annexation.
annexation building.
Right.
Yes. So it's gonna take longer to get an elite army, basically. In the previous version of the game, you could recruit your best troops straight out of your capital from the get-go. And in some factions, you still can do that. But in most factions, you really have to invest into your cities in order to get better troops.
Yeah.
And it it makes the game a little bit slower, but it gives you a better sense of progression of feeling that you've accomplished something in advancing your city and being able to get better stuff. And the more cities you build up, the more places you'll have where you can get elite troops.
So you look at like the big factions, and I say the big factions. I talk about like the top four, like Rome, or the top five: Rome, Carthage, Ptolemies, Seleucids, Antigonids. I think I throw Bactria in there. They have some territory, but you look at them; their capitals are the most well developed as far as military infrastructure. You might have to build one more annexation, and you're going to have to build up your barracks a little bit and your other buildings a little bit. But then the surrounding territories are really based on their historical setting. So, like the Seleucids, for example, we had our Seleucid historian Rex. He kind of went through and just kind of made everything as accurate as possible for what we have available to us. Um, so you're going to be able to recruit your best troops in Antioch and Seleucia, but if you're over in like I don't know, Hecatomphilus and Zajakarta, you're going to be at bare bones level, and you're going to have to build those regions up. Um, and I think that's fair because before it was pretty easy to get units, and it was pretty easy to get your military going, and it just almost became like you get death stacks. Now your smaller factions, we first tried like the Arverni and these single tribe and single city state factions out with like well, it's their capital, so they should get the best recruitment. What would happen though is it basically just gives the player access to everything without working for anything.
Right.
So it kind of makes it less fun. So if you're playing like the Arverni, it's going to be kind of like a vanilla experience. You're going to get like an annexation two, militia barracks, and basic stables and range, and you're just gonna have to build it up as you build your city. It gives more of a rewarding factor. So like when you finally can recruit the Mbapti as Arverni, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, now I can really do some damage and I can fight the Romans instead of just getting Mbapti right away and be like, I'm kind of bored of this. And we're really hoping that it's gonna be a reward system for the player. Like you're gonna go through this campaign, and as you go, you're unlocking things, and you're invested into a longer campaign. It's not going to be one of those, oh, I played 50 turns and I've conquered all of Europe. I think I'm done with RAS for a while. We don't want that. We want sustained playability and people to come back and play as new factions and to be able to have a great, immersive, long-lasting experience. And again, with the recruitment, this is like alpha phase. We are already chomping at the bit to start talking about AOR systems, government systems, client state systems, technological unlockment systems, like culture systems,
Right.
calling it in. There's so much things that we can do. And this is just step one.
No, that's all great stuff for sure. And that's really good to hear. Like, I always say on the channel that I used to play a lot of Civ Like I grew up with that. So like having more sophisticated building systems than vanilla where you just upgrade your building, you get a better archer, right? Having to think and work a little bit harder than that, that's going to add, I think, a lot more to the campaign in the mod for sure. Because yeah, I remember, at the start, especially as a smaller faction, boom, you got everything from the start because it was your capital. But yeah, no, those are going to be some good changes for sure.
Like,
So yeah,
like it makes sense. Like I don't want to beat a dead horse and stay on this topic, but it makes sense. Like realistically, yeah. Like if you're the Arverni, you should be able to get your Ambacti and your noble cavalry from your capital, right? Like,
yeah,
but gameplay wise, and this is where it becomes tough to mod because you have to balance historical accuracy and realism with gameplay. From a gameplay perspective, it just kills it. And we've actually made a few things that are a little against history to make the game better. For example, there's a few regions across the map that have really huge armies of rebels to kind of slow you down or slow the AI down a little bit because um, like we're trying to prevent a Romano-Swabian war in 230 BC, and like there's little things that we're trying to do. So you might see a region and be like, "Oh, well, historically this tribe wasn't that great." Okay, yeah, we understand that, but we want to make sure that the game plays well too. So it's always a dance. I'm sure you found that with chivalry.
oh yeah, yeah. You have to. There's always a compromise. There's always a compromise because it just has to. It has to work, right? And I mean, I suppose like for nobles, like your noble cavalry, you could think that the general's bodyguard is kind of your early noble cavalry, and then you can recruit them separately, like later once it's more well developed, I guess.
Right.
So it's not like totally against history. Like you just have to put it in perspective.
What are your thoughts, speaking of that, and what are your thoughts on general's bodyguards in general when it comes to like Rome Total War and its mods? Do you think they're rightly like supposed to be like that tank that can just like win or lose a battle for you, especially if you get like 3 or 4 generals in a stack? Or do you think, and this is just something that I've been thinking about recently, do you think they should be like just like a normal unit where you have to really think about, should I commit this unit to battle and risk my general, or should I hold them back to direct the troops? Because I get the impression, and I think it's just from vanilla, but it carries on to mods too. And I wonder if we just do this subconsciously. The general's bodyguard unit for every faction is always like the elite tank unit. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be the best unit or one of the best units out there at the battle, but sometimes I feel like they're a little bit too weighty and they can turn the tide too easily. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, like for general's bodyguards, I think it depends on several factors. So, like, you think about it, the generals in Rome Total War, I think it depends a lot on the faction you're playing as. Like, obviously, the Roman general's bodyguard should definitely be probably one of the weaker general's bodyguards, right? So, I mean, the Romans not known for their heavy noble cavalry, right? Charging and ending battles right then and there, right? It was much more infantry, like tactics, formations based affair, right? For them. So their generals' bodyguards should definitely be like, a decent cavalry unit, but not the elite of the elite, right? But then you have uh, Eastern factions, let's say, like Pontus and Armenia and Parthia, right?
Right.
The Achaemenid successors. They should have like at least, let's say, in the early era, right before reforms, giving them heavier bodyguards. They should have, really elite cavalry that should cause even like the best Macedonian companion cav some trouble, right? And then you have cavalry like the Alexander style companion cavalry, and those are the decisive battle changers, right? Then you have
Yeah.
cataphracts. So I think, should a general's cataphract be better than a regular cataphract you can recruit? And so I'm talking about like the elite of the elite. I don't think they should be that much better, right?
Agreed.
They should be about the same as like the cataphract of a general should be maybe a tad better with morale because they're protecting a general. But like in terms of skill, like would it make sense to have the general have a better cataphract bodyguard than, I don't know. This is very much a gamey thing, like a non-general's bodyguard cataphract. Like no one in a Parthian army would think of it that way, right? I'm a cataphract, but I'm not guarding the general. But no, I don't think there should be a difference. Yeah.
I'm a beta cataphract.
I'm a beta cataphract. Yeah. I'm an alpha cataphract. I'm a beta cat. That doesn't make sense, right? If you think about it that way. And they should be different depending on the faction because that's realistic and it's also more interesting.
Yeah, it is. I'm just thinking, sometimes I see these let's plays or I just play myself or I look at what our testers are doing and I'm just like, oh, these general units are like they kind of just sometimes I just wonder like what we could do to fix. One of the main things that like got done was talked about but didn't get done until the very end was we redid the general's bodyguard for the Iceni, the Britons. And I'm not saying many people play the Iceni, which is kind of sad because they're kind of interesting, but their chariots were just so badly balanced. What were they too big? Moscow, I can't remember. Were they too powerful? Were they too weak? Or were they once too powerful and then we made them too weak? What was the deal with those chariots?
Basically, the problem was that in a 3D battle, they were pretty useless, but on auto resolve, they would destroy everything. So you could just build an army of cataphracts and auto resolve every battle and easily win. But if you actually went and fought that battle on the 3D battle map,
Oh, you mean
you would
chariots, right?
probably lose. Yes, the
Chariots.
British,
Okay.
specifically the British chariots. The Eastern style scythes chariots are still pretty overpowered, unfortunately.
And
And
yet,
it's kind of just a Rome Total War thing where the way the units, like those models and skeletons and all that works, uh, they just are really good at killing other stuff.
we haven't
Right.
touched the side chariots yet because they're not general units and they're not like super available. But the Britons, they had those chariot units always, and we were just getting so much feedback. So, at the end of the day, we have decided to remove them as a bodyguard unit from the Iceni against historical accuracy. We consulted our Celtic historian; he was cool with it though. So they are now replaced with like an Bacti heavy swordsman unit as their general unit. Should be a little bit more of a better campaign now, because yeah, they were either wiping the map as AI or if you were playing as them, they stuck, and it's like it was just a weird thing that we were getting pretty annoyed with.
Right.
So that's welcome to Rome Total War modding or Rome Remastered modding, I should say.
Yeah, definitely. No. Chariots have always been tough to balance for sure, especially those the British ones and the Pontic ones.
Yeah, the
Right.
scythe one to be the next one to tackle.
Yeah. So I think there is a big elephant in the room here. So there's something big in development for RIS. And that thing is the new campaign map, right? Because the current version and the version that's being released soon is based on Mundus Magnus, correct? But this new one is a totally brand new map.
Correct. Yeah, it's you know, we are basically almost done with our first phase of work. That's going to be the regions. So we simply just littered the map full of cities and regions. For the most part, historically accurate drawn regions. There's probably going to be a lot of edits though for gameplay. Um, the road ahead is long, but yeah, we have a much bigger map with a ton of regions, and except for like Germania, we have the whole map pretty much filled out. I think we need some more in Gaul.
So not bigger in terms of, covering a larger area, but bigger in terms of scale, right? That's what you mean.
Yeah, well, correct. Yeah, so Italy is bigger, Iberia is bigger, Greece is bigger, so we can fit more cities. So we can. So this is kind of how you build it. You make it bigger so you can add more cities and add more regions. Why? Well, you want to represent more cultures and more factions. Why? Because the more cultures and factions you represent, the more unique units and AOR units and mercenary units you get to represent as well. And so ultimately, that is why we do this. Units are a big draw, and unfortunately, we only have one unit maker right now, and he has spent the last 2 months on just working on Greek models, so we can kind of have like a Greek unit factory producing Greek units.
Right.
And so you just think, well, that's just Greek units. We haven't even taken account of Italic or Punic or Iberian, so it's going to be a long time. We desperately need 3D modelers. But anyways, regardless, like at the end of the day, the draw of these mods is units and diversity, and you want to be able to represent cultures and factions accurately. And so it all starts with the map. And so yeah, while we are experimenting and putting new features in the Mundus Magnus map where it's very playable, we can get something out to the public so they can play and have fun. We're kind of like working in behind the scenes on like what we really want this mod to be. So yeah, the map is, as far as phase one is concerned, phase one is about 95% complete.
Yeah, so I can see that you're streaming the map right now. So what parts of the map do you think the public could take a look at, if any?
Pretty much show most of it. I probably won't show Gaul and Germania just because we're not finished there. But as you can see, we have Italy here. And again, this is very, very, very far from being finished. But just the Etruscans, we have 3 Etruscan cities now. Um, so we can represent them better. You got the Umbrians, you know, you get down here, Lucania, the Brudians, all the Greek colonies like Tarentum, Croton, Rhegium. So like everything's accurately placed. Sicily, we might add. We've talked about maybe adding 1 or 2 more cities here in Sicily. These were like our first regions that we worked on, so we
Yeah.
might revisit them just to kind of like check to see if they're consistent with the rest. But then you get into North Africa and you start seeing some cities like Kosira. We've added Malta, and then you just look at all these cities. A lot of them I've heard about. Some of these we did some serious research on to get in. Um, so it's going to be a much more interesting campaign. This area, see, you can tell this is definitely an alpha version. We have, Jesus walking armies over
Right.
here, and it just, honestly, guys, it's their faith. They just have a lot of faith, so they can walk on water. Anyways, like one thing, this is just a small example, but it always bothered me that this area was heavily colonized by the Phoenicians, but most mods always just represented it by Leptis.
Yeah.
But now these two, Abrodanum and Oea, it's nice to have them in. And then you can go as far into the desert. And you have the ancient Garamantis. And this is as far south as we
But it
go.
actually wasn't desert back then, like the Garamantian area. Because of the advanced irrigation system, it was actually quite fertile for them.
Yeah, and we want to have those factions
Yeah.
available. The Gaetulians are here. Both Numidian tribes are being, they're able to be represented now. The Moors. I mean, you get Iberia is crazy. You look at a lot of Iberian settlements here.
Yeah,
So there were
with the new factions, with new Iberian factions, that could get
the
pretty
culture.
crazy.
Like, how awesome would it to be now to be a Carthaginian player, and you have Iberians in the south and east, the Lusitani over here in the west. You have the Celtic like Astures and Galaci, and the Cantabria up here, and then you have the Celtiberians who are very fierce. You have the very warlike Ilergetes and Indigetes over here, and then the fierce Editani. Like, you have so many different options to like, and the cultures are gonna clash. Like, you're gonna have Celtic clashing with Iberian, clashing with Phoenician, clashing with like almost like the Lusitania, like a proto-European.
And the Greek in the
And then
eastern
you get
part. Yeah.
you get Greek over here too. So that's gonna be really fun. We did finish out Southern Gaul, like Massalia. Um, East Alpine Gaul is ready. Illyria. This is the most like in-depth Illyria I've ever seen on a map. So, the
Yep.
RDAI, the Deorsi, the Delmatae, the Liburni, they're all going to be there. You have the Greek colonies. Then go west or east. The Dacian areas have been researched well. You look at all the Greek colonies along the coast of the Black Sea. I mean, it's just a lot. We're giving ourselves a lot of opportunities to show off a lot of what was going on in this time period.
Yeah,
And
and the scale gives you the opportunity to do that, and the lifted limits.
yeah, the lift. So this is what we've wanted for years and years and years, years and years and years and years. This is what we've been wanting. Um, Macedonia, Thessaly, Emperor. Look at all the Emperote cities. I mean, they're all rebels. We like, again, guys. This is just like cities on a map. This is nothing more than that. We will get
The
way,
starting positions are not final.
yeah, way
Okay.
far. Final. I mean, there's. Go ahead.
Right now is patience.
Yes,
Almost every single thing that someone has asked us, "Hey guys, have you thought about adding this? Hey guys, will you add this?" Yes, we've thought about it. Trust us. We've thought about just about every single suggestion, from battles to campaign map to cities to buildings. We've but we can only work on so many things at once, and some of this takes a long time to make sure it actually works, because we don't want to release a mod that is really buggy and crashy and unstable, because a lot of mods have a reputation for not being the most stable, and we want to make sure that we have an accurate, fun, and stable game. So just we need a lot of patience. And this map that you're getting to look at right now, it looks great, but it's going to be a long time before it's actually playable, because there's so much work that needs to be done behind the scenes before it actually is playable.
correct.
Sorry.
I just want to give a little shout out to one of our historians, Malphilos of Mylasa.
Oh yeah.
He, there we go. So
Yeah, there we go.
we now know
Moslos.
where Mylasa originates from. He's a very strong Carrion fan. He loves Caria. Uh, the Carians, who knows? Maybe we'll make them an emergent faction one day. I don't know, but that's kind of the thing. He is responsible for about half of the faction descriptions that you get to read before you select your campaign. He does a wonderful job with our research. He is also about 50 to 60% responsible for a lot of the research of these cities. He helped out greatly with that. I have to give out another shout out to, we call him our wizard. His name is Joroloff. He is the one who did, I'd say, 80% of the research for these cities. And he is also responsible for placing the cities. So not only did he do the research and manage a spreadsheet, but he also manually placed all of these I think he started in October, and he's pretty much finished by the end of February. Rex Basiliscus, he's our Seleucid expert. He is also very responsible, especially for these areas here in Anatolia, or Asia Minor, however you want to call it. Genava, he's our Celtic guy, and then our wonderful and lovable galvanized Iron Raptor is going to give us a very fresh and exciting look for the Germanic and Scandinavian areas, which we have not put in yet. And that's why I'm not showing it. But you're seeing Syria right here. This is a lot, and the Seleucids will be represented well. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a Total War map include Kirhos
Where's
before, so that's
here?
good to see. Yeah. And Teluk, I think, or Dolike, right north of Kiros. I think in a game I've only seen that represented in Crusader Kings 2, I think, or
Like
Crusader Kings 3
we're
too.
trying to tackle our inner paradox here.
Yeah,
Even Cyprus, you know, Cyprus has 4, Crete has 4. Um, we did some serious research because now at Tyrene's a faction, we wanted to give them a good start. They had, I guess, this is a fortress here, and this will also be a fortress, Aramala. But then you
yeah.
have like their main cities up here. The Nile goes all the way down. Look, we have all these Egyptian and Ptolemaic cities. Um, Guys, I can't tell you how much research was done. It is
And I mean, all the work put into making these boundaries the way they are, that it takes a lot of work. I know personally how much work that takes.
and here's we even did Ethiopia. So yes, if you're looking for a Kush faction or an Ethiopian faction, we do plan on doing it. Like Mosca said, like it's in the works. It's just pushed way down our priority list. We don't even have hardly anything to
Units.
really that
Yeah.
faction. Just kind of like how you, Judea, you were talking about how you don't have anything for a Serbian faction,
Yeah.
you know, and maybe you have plans for some more Polish factions in the future. You just haven't got to it yet. It's all prioritized and it's all on a list. It's just you're only one man for your mod. I'm surprised you've gotten so far with what you have.
Yeah, no, I've got a team now, but still the big thing for Rome Remastered, this is a good thing you brought up, is that I think pretty much every Rome Remastered mod just needs volunteers who are willing to make units. I think that's the big thing. Do you agree?
Oh my God, our our dear Tone, as we like to call him, he is so wonderful, and without him, we would have no hope as far as units are concerned.
No,
What?
we call him the Mod Father.
Yeah, we call him the
That's another nickname for him.
He we have nicknames for everybody, but he's an amazing 3D artist, and he's got a whole plan laid out for
And a
you.
scripter and a coder and everything else that you need to do to mod this game.
Yeah.
And we've elected for him and told him basically just focus on the units. We'll take care of everything else. And we're gonna come out with a developer diary soon, and it's just gonna be him talking about what he's been able to accomplish so far. We are not, and I will repeat, we are not releasing any new Greek units or no new units in this release. There's nothing unit wise other than really stats that's going to be released. But just be rest assured that whether it be the next release or the release after that, you will start seeing new units and the Rome remastered models being used and taken advantage of. From the sneak peeks that he's given us in our developer channels, it looks phenomenal. So it is going to be really cool. It's just going to take time. The more graphics artists we can get on the team, whether you be 2D or 3D, just so you can plug yourself in and be part of the workflow and take time. The more we have working, the quicker things will go. So even if you're not 100% skilled at 3D or 100% skilled at 2D, if you have any kind of skills or artistic ability when it comes to those programs, whether it be 3ds Max, Blender, Photoshop, GIMP, definitely get in touch with us so we can get you working on these units. I wanted to pause in Mesopotamia here because this is a soft spot for you, Gudea.
Yeah.
Wanted to get
Nippur is there. That's good. I'm glad to see Nippur. Lagash is not there, so I'm not going to be playing the mod. Unfortunately, I'm just kidding.
you up with the wizard. You're gonna have to hope that he doesn't cast any spells. But yeah, we got Babylon and Seleucia, Apamea, Sitakine. I guess that was a recently found researched one.
Yeah.
We have your precious Uruk.
Of
Uh,
course.
let's see what else we got. We go up into Assyria a little bit.
Ashur is there.
Bertha. We have Assyria is pretty much. And then we go up, kind of like in the middle areas, and then now we're getting close to your homelands here. You got Scythia Minor, Sophene, Comain,
Yep.
Cappadocia is represented well.
Yeah, that's
Pontus,
good to see. Komana is there. That's nice. I don't think any other mod has Komana.
yeah. So whenever we get a Cappadocian faction, they'll have two cities to start off with. Let's go up to Armenia. I thought there'd be a ton of Armenian cities. There really wasn't. Or
Well,
at least,
a lot of them were founded like a century or 150 years after the start date.
yeah, you're right. Because for what we found, like Gymnius over here, or Nashauna, I don't know how you pronounce that.
Perhaps Nahuana. Perhaps the
No,
X would be a ch there, but I'm not.
and
Or
then
I believe so. Yes.
Gorniai. I don't know. These are all foreign to me, man. This is your expertise.
Garni, the Temple of Garni. It's a popular tourist destination.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Even the Caucasus is done better. Basis as a Greek colony, Dioscuri. Now, Colchis, Iberia, and Gabala. I don't know if there's much more to add up here.
For this period, no, again, I think a lot of the cities would be founded a little bit after the start date. That's the problem with the early start. That's the problem with, I guess, the Rome Total War engine in general is you can't found new cities. And if you think about it, like Alexander and Seleucus and all those guys, they were founding cities left and right, right?
Yeah,
So,
that
yeah,
would be a
that's just a game limitation. It's understandable.
one that was not able to be done. Here's Scythia real quick, and I'll run over Iran, Persia. So we did the best we could when it came to Scythia Formatia. Uh, Both foreign area will be pretty cool. But honestly, guys, I mean, we're dealing with nomadic lands up here.
Yeah.
So other than I think Ptolemy was our only source, and we did the best we could with what Ptolemy gives us. And yeah, so there's going to be a lot of empty wasteland, but that's to be expected. But the good news is with Scythian and Formation factions, they're going to be nomadic anyway. So you'll be probably hoarding and going south, pillaging and whatnot. Real quick in Iran, Persia, Ecbatana, Antiochia, Medius. We did the best we could everywhere. Um, some of these areas are very hard to research.
Right, for sure. For sure. Especially for the Seleucid period.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean Persia itself, you get Passagarde, Istakir, Pafta. You got a couple in the south here, Antiochia, Persis. Um,
And
Armenia's got two settlements.
and I like the region names. They all have unique region names. Those are not easy to come up
No,
with a lot of the time.
no, the wizard was he was definitely building some concoctions down in Snake Muck Swamp, wasn't he, Moscow? That's That's what we have like this whole inside
So
joke,
many inside jokes.
a lot of inside
Right.
jokes. And then last, here's Bactria. Bactria was the land of what, 10,000 cities? Something like that. We didn't add 10,000. We just added a couple. And
It's
then yeah,
over 9,000 something.
overnight.
Yeah.
Here we go. And then that would be pretty much be it. And then last, India got a little bit of love.
Nice. I like that.
I know people have been begging for an Indian faction again. We probably will eventually put an Indian faction in. It'll probably be Gandhara or Taxila, whatever. I don't know much about this area, so I'm guessing it would be the Gandharan city state or
Well,
province.
it was part of the Mauryan Empire, right? So it would kind of be like a Mauryan sort of
state,
governorship type
because
faction there. Yeah.
I'm not gonna. I'm telling you, I'm not gonna include all of India. I just
Right.
out of all the limits that were fixed and limited, unlimited and stuff, the map still only has a certain scale it can be made at. And I'm not trying to extend India and squash the rest of the world. Um,
Yeah,
so I
the
think,
scale of the map does have a limit that everyone should know that.
yeah,
So yeah.
this is going to be the best that we can get. Now, we will come up with an Indian culture. We'll probably add the Maryans. I don't know. It's going to be something that we all talk about.
But the
And
great thing about this is that even if you don't have an Indian faction yet, like you can still add like Indo-Greek
the Indo
reforms, Indo-Greek units, and then Indo-Saka units. So it's still going to be really cool to conquer it and get access to a whole bunch of cool units.
I wanted to show this off real quick. Okay. So don't pay attention to the colors because as you can see, like all these
Work in
solution lands
progress, work in progress.
like work in progress, but pay attention to the amount of cities. Like, guys, this is gonna be epic. Now, there's gonna be a ton of balancing issues. I mean, guys, it's gonna be a lot of work. Do not expect this anytime soon. Don't even expect it in the year of 2022. I'll say that much.
Mm.
Would it be great if we released it in 2022? Sure. Is it realistic? I don't know. There's a lot of work for us to do. And if we're gonna continue releasing things every 3 months for you guys to play, you know, we're not gonna be able to devote our 100% attention to this. And honestly, I don't think it'd be fair to devote 100% of our attention to this and then not give you guys something for a long time. I like giving you guys a mod every 3 months or so to play, whereas this might take a year and a half. And I remember growing up, I was never a fan of Europa Barbarorum or Rome Total Realism taking years to make a release. So also that puts a ton more pressure on the team, believe it or not. When you don't have, as a mod leader, the project leader, and just manager in general, when you don't have releases and you don't have celebrations and victories, it gets really hard to stick with it, and it's a lot easier to think that it's never going to be done. So if you're ever modding, make sure you don't stretch yourself so thin where you don't have a release. You always want to give yourself a time limit so you can release in patches and betas. The longer you prolong a release, the harder it's going to get. So we found with us, it's like a sweet spot, like every 2.5 to 3 months to get a release out. But this map, guys, it's going to take a long time, and just asking for your patience and your understanding and your support. Really, I mean, we do this for free, and so keep supporting Gudea with chivalry too, because he doesn't. We don't get paid. We don't want to get paid. This is something we do out of love and passion.
Right.
And I hope you guys just enjoy it.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's probably a good note to sort of end this video here. But I guess before we go, do you guys have anything final to sort of say about this next update and about modding Rome Remastered in general?
I'll let you go first, Monster.
You're not gonna give me a second to think about it, huh? Well, like Ahowl said earlier, if you have any experience or knowledge or ability with 3D or 2D modeling and texturing and all that, we need you. We need your help.
I need you to. I need you to.
The Rome, that's the biggest thing that's holding us back right now. If you guys want new units, we need people to make those new units. I'll also say, it's if you want to think about it from a growth point of view, if you start modding and learning a skill through modding, you can apply that perhaps to a career in the future, and that'll be a great way for you to grow and learn something new. I know that for me, which I've never modded before. I came onto the before I joined the mod team for this. But I've learned so much about coding and computers and how this stuff works. And now I've enrolled in a program to learn about web development. So you can learn a lot. You get to, if you're on the mod team, and you're actually helping. Um, you work on the mod and you see the progress of the mod. So it's great to see people. Of course, we only want people who are actually committed. And if we realize that you're not,
We're
you
gonna
might not last too long on the mod team, but for people that really want to learn and grow and contribute, we need you.
So, Moscaflaca, what made you want to
Yes.
get into modding?
Well, I've been a PC gamer pretty much my whole life, unapologetic gamer. Um, and I've always gravitated towards mods because I would play a game for a long time and like get really familiar with it and want to like something more to it.
Yeah.
And so I would always be playing random mods. And then one day I found um RTR8 and I just kind of like started talking to Hal because there were some problems with the mod, like some glitches and stuff.
Yeah.
And we became friends, and I just kind of like became a part of his mod team like after that.
Mm-hmm.
So just enjoyment of playing mods, I guess, is why I got into modding. And because Hal made me like his slave, his mod slave.
Right. I was going to make that joke, but you made it for me.
No, Moscow makes great points. I think one thing that that I could add is when you're working on a mod like this or a project, and it's a shared passion for history and just the game, and you learn so much. Uh, it's a lot of fun to be working, and you can call these people not just your peers, but your friends. These are people who live all over the world. Um, and it's just really cool to understand these people from where they're coming from, their culture systems, and their ideas. And it's nice when you have a guy like Mausolos who lives in Germany, and he works. He's like a historian basically, and he has access to libraries that I don't have access to. And it's just kind of cool to be able to work with these people, and then other people that just the knowledge that they drop. Like I just learned that Dacia, the Transylvanian area in like Romania, like this area right here to the west was Celtic, not Dacian. And that's very interesting to me. And I wouldn't have learned any of this if it wasn't for modding. Oh, one last thing I want to say, Gudea, before we go.
Mhm.
0.5.0 will be put in development as soon as 0.4.0 is released. I just want to let you guys know because we're going to get questions upon questions upon questions. I'm not going to give away the faction names. We do have a list of factions. I'm not going to give you the number of factions either because we start need to determine what's possible. But I will say we've done our Greek release now. The next release will be focused on the Celts and the Germans and the more barbarian nation. But I will say this: I've seen in comments all over and asking all over a lot of questions about Illyrians and Dardanians. I want to tell you right now, we only have 2 models for Illyrian units. I'm not sure how possible it's going to be in the near future to get a good looking Illyrian or Dardanian faction out. However, it is on the top of our list because we do realize how much the map needs it. So we will do what we can, but do not. So I would say hope for the best, but don't expect anything when it comes to Illyrians and Dardanians, because if we were to put out that right now with what we have, it would be one of the worst representations of those factions ever. I'd rather have a good representation for you guys than not. But yes, expect Celtic, Germanic, some Iberian, and maybe there's a couple wrinkles thrown in there as well. And then obviously with the cultures, the religions, the buildings, the military, and stats, those will all be upgraded to a new level of development as well. So wanted to get that out there now. We know that there's going to be a lot of questions, and with that, yeah, I think we're good to go, Gudea. Thanks for having me in Moscow today.
All right.
This
Yeah, it was great to talk to both of you. Um, yeah, that was a great conversation. I hope everyone at home understands that basically every Rome Remastered mod team needs 3D modelers and 2D artists, and yeah, we need you really badly. Okay, on that note, I look forward to playing this next release on the channel. For sure, I'll probably be streaming and playing one of the new Greek factions, because that looks pretty nice indeed with all the new factions there. So with that, thanks Ahowl, thank you Moscaflaca, and I'll see everyone in the next one.